You know what all of us Americans have been doing over the past couple years? Getting way too excited for Star Wars revivals, talking shit about Monica Lewinsky, going to the movie theater to see Jurassic Park, debating back and forth over Tanya Harding's innocence, and voting for Clinton for president. Guys, I just realized what happened. We're still living in the 90s. The 90s are never going to be over, I figured I would do the 90s book mixtape tag, originally created by Amy Gets Lit. So when I saw this tag, I was super excited because I love 90s music, I love 90s style. I didn't enjoy living in the 90s that much because I was a little kid and I had all kinds of problems, and let's not get into that. Anyway, this tag is allowing me to revisit the perfect recreated version of the 90s that we all hold deeply in our hearts. So let's get to it. First up is Friday, I'm in Love by The Cure, and that is a book that you have a love-hate relationship with. And that book is Leah on the Offbeat. So there was so much for me to love about this book. I loved the voice. I related to Leah as a character so much. I thought the characters were super interesting and fun and had cool dynamics. But I hated the story. There was no story, there was no plot. The characters never grew or changed in any way. This was sold to me as being a book about like a cool, snarky girl drummer who's getting ready for college and is at kind of a crossroads in her life trying to figure it all out. And she like almost never plays the drums, like the music aspect is almost never even explored. There's just so much wrong with this. Watch my full review of it. I'll link it in the description below if you want to know why this book disappointed me. Next up is Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, and that is your favorite coming of age story. For me, that's going to be Carry On. I loved the way that this book portrayed the coming of age process and how it kind of showed characters when they're 18 years old, which I think is like the perfect coming of age for stories, seeing characters when they're like right on the cusp of childhood and adulthood and what that means for them. And I know this book has gotten a lot of mixed reviews because it's like its own novel, but some people are like it's also kind of a Harry Potter / Twilight fan fiction, and I'm like, I love this book, so get off my lawn. Next is Criminal by Fiona Apple, and that is your favorite true crime novel. I'm gonna be honest, I don't read true crime novels. I'm open to reading them, I'm open to getting into them, but I don't really know much about them, so I don't really have an answer for this one. I have watched true crime stuff on TV. I actually, when I was in college, I once like set up lights and worked as like a set assistant on an episode of Red Room, so if that's not a true crime novel, but that's as close as I can get. Next up is Season of the Abyss by Slayer, and this is for a story that is very dark and has dark themes. I'm gonna go with Underneath the Whiskey for this one. This is written by my friend Chelsea, and it's the first book put out under her new small press Represent Publishing. I love this publisher because they're the publisher that put out my novel Sculpt Yourself, which I've linked to in the description below. But this book was my first introduction to her as a writer, and I think that it's really well written, but it's very dark. There's a lot of really heavy topics that are dealt with in this book. I've also done a full review of this book in the past, so I'll link to that in the description below as well. But basically this book deals with alcoholism, with drug addiction, with depression, with suicide, with sexual assault, with questioning your sexual orientation and the trauma that can come of things like conversion therapy and all of that. So basically, there's a lot of stuff that's dark in this book, but there's also a lot of stuff that's hopeful and stuff that's beautiful in it, so I loved this book. Next up is Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. So this is a novel where the main character sabotages themselves. For this, I chose Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I related to this book really hard because the main character in this has OCD. I also have OCD in the same kind of way that she does, with having intrusive thoughts that you can't ignore and how they like kind of mess up your life in a lot of ways. I'm gonna do a full review of this book later on, but I absolutely love the way that it showed self-destruction in a way that isn't the main character's fault, but still you want that character to help themselves. The main character, Asa, she forgets to take her medication, she struggles with listening to what her psychiatrist tells her, and the whole time you're like, just do it, you're gonna be so much happier. But the struggle that she's going through in the entire story as she like debates whether or not the medication's going to make her a different person and what that will mean for who she is at her core, that was a very relatable struggle, and so her self-sabotage it was something that I really related to, so I appreciated that. Next up is Linger by the Cranberries, and this is for a book that has lingered with you long after you put it down. And this is really awkward and somewhat ironic because the book has stayed with me for the past like 12 years, but it's not with me right now. I can't find it on my shelf. If it's like on my shelf right behind me and you guys see it in the background, that'll be super extra awkward. But it's An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. This was the first John Green novel that I'd ever read. I read it back when I was 14, and I think it was like shortly right after it came out in 2006. And this book it meant so much to me. The writing style, the way that Colin as the main character was dealing with this struggle of being a smart kid when you're younger and worrying that you peak too early and that your life isn't going to have any meaning beyond this. That was all really relatable to me. I really liked the use of anagrams as a plot device throughout it because I'm really into anagramming things and shifting letters around. Like, I think that's so fun. So there was just so much about this book that I loved, and I wish I had it in my hand right now, but I don't, even though it's lingered with me. Next up is Wonderwall by Oasis, and this is a book with family members that hate each other. For this, I chose Noah Can't Even. I think this is one of the most hilarious books that I've ever read, but it also has one of the most dysfunctional families. And I think this book did a great job of balancing that line between like something that's humorous and something that's dark and sad. It kind of reminded me of Arrested Development in the way that it did that, because on Arrested Development, right, the family members are all horrible to each other and nobody's really likable, but at the end of the day you have to laugh at how ridiculous it all is. That's what this book reminded me of. This kid, Noah, he has a single mom, and she does like a Beyonce tribute act all the time, and she doesn't really care about being a good mom. She's just like out all the time doing her thing and getting with younger men and not really caring about Noah as her son, and she's just horrible, and the family has so many problems, but God, is this book funny. I highly recommend this book. Next up is Baby One More Time by Britney Spears, and this is a book that you reread. So, if you can't tell by the deteriorating spine, that's funny. I have scoliosis, so in a way I also have a deteriorating spine. Maybe that's why I related to this book. I have reread the book The Misfits over and over and over again. I first got this book as a Christmas gift when I was in 7th grade, and I read it, and I just thought the writing style was so fun, and it was so hilarious, and I just like really got invested in the characters and their lives and how they felt about things. So I reread this book in middle school a bunch of times, and then when I had just graduated college, I went back and reread it again because I wanted to see why I liked it so much back then and see if it still held up for me, and it did. And what I noticed about it was a lot of pieces of my own writing style, like the way I write really long sentences, the way I'm kind of long-winded and incorporate stream of consciousness within a narrative. A lot of that is similar to how it's done in here, and it's just amazing realizing how much a book can influence someone's writing style as they grow older. So that was kind of amazing for me. The only thing I don't like about it looking back is the insults that the kids use toward each other they seem very dated, but I guess it is the 90s right now, so that's actually even more appropriate. Next up is the song Poison, which is for a book about a toxic relationship. For this, I chose Honesty by Seth King. I had a lot of mixed feelings about this book, so I could also say love-hate relationship for this one too, I guess. This is written by a really successful indie author who I really respect. I respect Seth King's writing a lot. The relationship that's portrayed in this book is very, very toxic. It has two young men, one of whom is gay and his father doesn't accept that. The other, I think, is bisexual, although it's never directly stated that way, so I also kind of had a problem with that, but that's a whole topic for another day. But he's also not accepting of the fact that he's interested in men and doesn't want to come out to anyone. So there's just this whole like toxicity to one guy kind of pressuring the other guy to come out all the time, and there's a lot of emotional manipulation, constant breaking up and getting back together, and I honestly found their relationship kind of exhausting and very like not something you want to follow. So I would categorize this as a toxic relationship. The writing in it's good, but the relationship I just could not get behind because there was so much wrong in it. Alright, thanks for reliving the 90s with me, everyone, although I'm pretty sure we're still trapped in them and are never going to get out of the 90s no matter how hard we try. Either way, please remember to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell if you want more videos like this. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought of these books if you've read any of them, and let me know what you think about the 90s and everything else, and we can talk about it and it'll be a good time and we'll all be cool 90s buddies. Anyway, see you guys later. Bye!